AC-44 Conveyor Dish Machine. Troubleshooting. Wash pump motor. In this tutorial, we're going to talk about the wash pump motor. No operation. In this scenario, we're going to talk about the door switch or an open door position. When the motor's not running, the first tendency is to push in on the contactor to check to see whether the contactor in the motor is working. This should be avoided. Pushing in the contactor can actually cause sparking or arcing of electricity that can cause an electrical shock. This is an electrical hazard and should be avoided. A safer method for testing the contactor is by pushing on the test buttons that are located on the ice cube relays. The dish machine must be in the on position. The master switch must be turned on to activate the ice cube relays. These test buttons are located on the bottom left-hand side of the ice cube relays. Let's take a closer look at these relays. Here we're looking at the top part of the terminal blocks for the ice cube relays. The red wire, which comes from the wash reed switch, is connected to the right side of the ice cube relay terminal blocks. This which sends voltage from your reed switch to your ice cube relay. The blue wire comes from the rinse reed switch. On the bottom side of the terminal blocks, the red wire continues out. The ice cube relay contactor is connected to the wash pump motor contactor. This is what engages the contactor when energized. The blue wire is connected to the rinse pump motor contactor. The second blue wire is connected to the final rinse 6-second delay. You also have a brown wire that jumps between both rinse and wash contactors, and the brown wire that continues on to the conveyor contactor. The ice cube relays are interchangeable. The wash and the rinse are exactly the same and can be interchanged. If we have our dish machine in the on position and we press in on the test switch, you'll notice that the conveyor and the wash contactors engage. This sends low voltage to the contactors, energizes a magnet that pulls in a magnet and engages the contactors. This is the safest method for testing whether the contactors and the motors are working. Now that we've looked at how the contactors work, another method for testing is using your voltmeter. Set the AC voltage. Use 1 meter lead on the common, 1 meter lead on the top part of the terminal. This should be energized when the master switch is on. Moving your meter lead to the bottom part of the terminal lets you know whether the door switch is working or not working. This is done by taking the wires. You'll see the top wire here coming from the top part of the power terminal that goes down to your door switch. The door switch is easily worked on and can be tested. Removing the top plate cover, you'll notice on the inside is a micro switch. The micro switch is wired to the normally open position. When the switch is activated, it closes the circuit and allows voltage to pass from one side to the other. When the door closes, this pushes in the switch, which closes the circuit. When voltage comes from the top part of your power terminal, the door is closed, transferring voltage through to the wire, It now comes back up and now supplies power to the bottom part of the power terminal. Now that we see how the door switch works, when we close the door, this now sends voltage to the lower part of the power terminal. We now have voltage that can go down to our reed switch. When the sequence bar is engaged, the reed switch closes, sends voltage to your ice cube relays, sends voltage to your wash contactor, and allows the contactor to close, energizing the wash motor, and dishes are now being washed. Let's take a look at a second scenario. Let's add in a table limit switch. Table limit switch is wired in conjunction with a door switch. A table limit switch would normally be wired normally closed. Normally closed meaning that when a force is pushed against it, it opens the switch. Table limit switches comes in different forms and shapes. A table limit switch is designed to protect the dish machine so that when racks coming out contacts the table limit switch, it kills the power to the motors and stops the machine. Table limit switches can be in the form of a contact, a reed switch, or a sensor. Looking at the table limit switch here, that when a rack comes in contact, it moves the switch to its normal position, which is a closed position. One of the big common problems of dish machines not running is tables either in the way of the table limit switch, which is killing the machine from running, or setting pots, pans, buckets, jugs, bus pans over the switch, which is also preventing the machine from operating. Remember, when the table limit switch is engaged, it releases the power to the power part of the bottom terminal. Once that's removed, power is now restored to the bottom part of the power terminal, which now sends power through the reed switch, your ice cube relays, to your wash contactor, and the wash motor begins to operate. Learn more about troubleshooting the AC-44 Conveyor Dish Machine by talking to your managers, regional manager, vice president, or contact the training center for more information.